Right now, the NCAA releases its scathing report into Syracuse University athletics. Syracuse head coach Jim Boeheim has been piling up victories for nearly 40 years. But tonight, he's about to lose a big chunk of his record. Tonight, we're digging deeper into the lengthy NCAA report. Plus, what about the treasured national championship from back in 2003? The report does raise concerns about player eligibility and violations going all the way back to 2001. Tonight, we continue our extensive live team coverage of the NCAA probe. We're sorting out what this all means for the university, the coaches, and even basketball fans. Some of the most serious punishments include the suspension of Coach Boeheim for 9 conference games. Plus, Syracuse University will lose 3 scholarships a year for 4 years. The NCAA is taking away wins from previous games, and that may harm Coach Boeheim's legacy. Matt's live from the Mello Center now, the state-of-the-art practice facility where the Orange basketball team calls home. Matt?
Well, Megan, it's worth noting that the Mello Center really was built in the wake of the '03 championship, and that's how far back these violations go. On the conference call with the NCAA today, I was listening in on their conference chairman who was talking about the investigation and noted that these violations were considered to be the highest level with aggravated circumstances. They took this very seriously, and they said if the same problems had surfaced today, Coach Boeheim could have been facing a 1-year suspension for an entire season. But still, the penalties are severe. 9 games for Coach Jim Boeheim at the start of the conference season, so that'll likely be after the new year next year. He's never been suspended before. The university is standing by the longtime coach, though, stating it did not feel the program lacked institutional control, and the coach should be held responsible. The NCAA sees that all differently.
Ultimately, we have a situation where the desire to achieve success on the basketball court overrides academic integrity. It really demonstrated clearly misplaced priorities.
Now, Sports Director Nico Tamurian joins us now. And Nico, before we get to more with you, we want to look back to 2003, right. Really the pinnacle of Jim Boeheim's career, and certainly for this community as a community of Orange fans. The greatest moment of his career really could have been in jeopardy with this. That victory in New Orleans has not been harmed, though, by the extensive sanctions. Fans will really never forget that team. It featured Carmelo Anthony, that the center here is named after, Jerry McNamara, Hakeem Warwick, Weth Twaney, all the guys that we all remember so fondly. The violations did go back to 2001, but it turns out that the NCAA and the university in their discussions agreed that 2004 was going to be the benchmark where the sanctions could go back to because they felt like it was just more than 10 years was too far for them to have any kind of punishment. So that makes sense considering how long this has drawn out.
I'll tell you a lot of Orange fans tonight breathing a sigh of relief that the statute of limitations went to May of 2003. That championship forever protected. That's a huge thing. Imagine what that would have done to the psyche of our town.
Yeah, that would have been really a severe price to pay. Obviously, that's part of a negotiated arrangement here tonight.
No question. And, you know, going back to Coach Boeheim, I mean, really, he's the guy that's singled out in this report. There's penalties, as like we mentioned, the suspension for him, 9 games, and not just 9 early games, but you know, these are ACC conference games against top-flight opponents, but there's still milestones for Jim Boeheim in jeopardy. The university self-imposing a vacation of 24 victories, so Boeheim already down to 942 wins as we speak. That number could go up because the NCAA wants to meet in the next 45 days to knock that down even further. Wins could be vacated even from 2013. How'd that impact the 2013 Final Four run? That remains to be seen as well. So the immediate impact comes from that suspension for 9 games to Coach Boeheim. The scholarship reduction, that'll be huge in the next 4 to 5 years to come, and even further than that as those players get older. But Coach's milestones and his quest for 1,000 wins certainly in jeopardy. And if you think about it, I mean, right now it's at 942. We're getting hypothetical here, but Coach, a couple of years staying on could hit that mark. But if the NCAA marks that down, say another 50, even 100 wins, then obviously that mark would be well out of reach for Coach.
One thing that's really fascinating about this whole story is Syracuse alone in having violations like this across the country?
I don't think so.
Or are they more widespread than maybe what we might realize?
You know, a lot of national pundits calling to mind North Carolina, and their penalties widely seen as much more severe than this. That's an ongoing NCAA investigation. If Syracuse was hit this hard, you wonder how North Carolina will be, but that's another conversation for another day.
You know, we talked about the fans. Our Alex Ursula met up with some of the fans today. He's at Tully's tonight, getting reaction from people who really live and die with the Orange this time of year. Alex.
Matt, here inside Tully's, it's very apparent when you look around at the walls at all the pictures and memorabilia from Syracuse University athletics, just how much the orange really means to this community here as they live with the team during the wins and they tend to die with them also during the losses. And this punishment imposed by the NCAA is one which many SU diehards have been anticipating, well, for quite some time now, leaving many fans wondering what else will happen to their team after the self-imposed postseason ban, mainly asking, will the Orange miss out on any other future tournaments in the near future? But now these fans have answers to their questions, and many tell me that these are answers which hit the team and then in turn the fans very hard. The suspension of Coach Boeheim, the loss of scholarships for the team, and the vacation of wins from past season comes as a complete shock to many fans, but for others this was to be expected after a years-long investigation into Syracuse University by the NCAA. The team will not have to miss any additional postseason games after this season. The one thing all fans do agree on is the silver lining in the announcement, which has everyone reacting.
I just think that it's not fair, and somebody needs to investigate how they make all the decisions that they come up with.
It's a lot to take in, but if everything is what they say it is, then it should be what he's getting.
I was actually disgusted because, you know, the guy's been here his whole life and done a lot for Syracuse. He can't follow the kids 24/7.
Coming up on NBC3 News at 6 o'clock, we're going to bring you some of the interviews I had with fans here and talking about the long-term future of the program here in Syracuse. We're going to be talking about upcoming decisions by recruits. For now, we're live here inside Tully's. I'm Alex Versilla. Matt, back to you.
Now, as for Coach Boeheim and the Orange team, right now they're in the air in their chartered flight down to North Carolina, getting ready for that last game of the season against North Carolina State tomorrow at noon. Megan?
People will be watching that game closely, Matt, and certainly listening and waiting for any reaction from Coach Boeheim. We'll see you tonight at 6. All right, well, as you might imagine, a lot of people have been talking about this on social media today. Here's what Andy Katz, an ESPN analyst, said today. Once again, I totally disagree with a self-imposed postseason ban prior to the announcement. Syracuse got crushed. Let it all start next season. Brent Axe, a local sports analyst, saying taking one win away, let alone 108 wins, is just pointless. One of the dumbest things in the NCAA's arsenal. Dante Green, a former SU player, shaking my head, he says, I still bleed orange. And then this tonight from Doug Gottlieb, a CBS sports analyst. Apparently the NCAA does not demand schools drug tests, though conferences likely do. Cuse didn't follow by the laws of their own rules. Tweet at us tonight at CNY Central.
Andy Katz, who talked with the coach late today. Now, this has really been a day where everybody's digesting this 94-page report, as you mentioned. There are concerns about academic violations, violating of the university's own drug policy, and also basketball and even a couple of football players getting an economic benefit from a booster who was working with the Oneida YMCA. A very involved story. You can read more about that on our website, cnycentral.com. Now, these sanctions do include a loss of 12 scholarships for the basketball team. They'll be spread out over the next 4 years. That's 3 per year. That's significant in terms of the talent on the team. Also, head coach Boeheim will be suspended for those 9 games that we mentioned. He will coach tomorrow at the game at NC State. That'll be his last game for this season. And then if things stay as they are, he would start next season before serving that suspension as the conference play picks up. Also, the team will also have to vacate wins in which any of the ineligible players participated, and that could be a substantial number for the Hall of Fame coach. Plus, both the football and basketball team will be under a 5-year period of probation.
The head coach has a duty to monitor the activities of those in the program and is also presumed to be accountable for their violations.
That was from the NCAA conference call this afternoon, where reporters were talking to the head of the committee that investigated this about the infractions, about the penalties. And Nico Tamurian, our sports director, joins me now. Nico, they consider these infractions quite serious, and they even added the phrase aggravated circumstances, which means that they are at the highest level that they really look into at the NCAA.
And no question, the NCAA also adding that if this penalty happened with the new infractions, that Coach Boeheim could have been suspended for an entire year. And you know, us in the sports world, I've have sources around town, as you do as well, and we all heard little bits and pieces, but we certainly had no idea the grand scope of everything that we saw in that report today. This report release really giving us an inside look at what was going on with this athletics department, especially with the academics. But as you mentioned, it really does single out Jim Boeheim, the NCAA saying that he is responsible, and they've also targeted him in the penalties. For one thing, the Syracuse University has already self-imposed getting rid of 24 wins, so Jim Boeheim down to 942 total. There's also the bigger part here. He's suspended for 9 games of the ACC schedule next year. The NCAA is saying they punished those Coach Boeheim specifically for that reason because he hired the staffers that committed these academic violations.
The rule is pretty clear that a head coach has a duty to monitor the activities of those in the program and is also presumed to be accountable for their violations, and the presumption in the case was not effectively rebutted at all. I mean, in fact, the coach hired the director of basketball operations to improve the academic performance of the players, and he did it by logging into their email accounts, exchanging communication with professors about what the student needs to do, and then in concert with the basketball receptionist, assisted in the preparation of coursework for the players. So in this case, the panel felt the head coach should be responsible.
Now, one penalty we haven't talked about in the last couple minutes anyway, the scholarship ban coming, Matt. 12 scholarships will be taken away from Syracuse over the course of the next 4 years. And joining me in sports in just a few minutes, Mike McAllister of CuseNation.com, Scout.com. He'll spell out what that means for the future.
And one thing, Nico, we haven't talked about at all is the university's greater response to this. The chairman of the board, Richard Thompson, responded in writing today, complimenting Chancellor Syverud and SU General Counsel Dan French for making this investigation come to a conclusion, for not letting it go on longer and longer, and this is where we stand today. Thank you, Nico. Now, a timeline of how we got to this point. Speaking of standing here today, 2007, the SU self-reported potential athletic department violations to the NCAA. Then it was March of 2012. Again, they self-reported possible violations of an internal drug policy by players. That involves the use of marijuana by players going back into the early 2000s. In October of last year, Syracuse had a 2-day hearing in front of the committee regarding infractions. Coach Boeheim attended that and gave his version of the facts. This all led to SU's decision to release that letter to the NCAA, their intention to ban themselves from postseason play and also from any NCAA or NIT tournament that could have happened this year. Now, fans are reacting to this tonight, as you'd expect, as you probably are at home as well, and the reactions really are all over the board. Our Alex Priscilla has the latest. He joins us live now from Tully's, where sports fans are getting their weekend started. Alex.
Well, Matt, all you have to do is look around Tully's for 5 or 10 seconds, and it'll instantly become very apparent the relationship between the men's basketball team over at the SU Hill and then the rest of the Syracuse and Central New York community with all the memorabilia and all of the pictures that line this wall, all the walls here. And with that being said, it's obvious that a lot of those SU diehard Orange fans have been waiting with anticipation for quite some time now for the details of that NCAA investigation to be released, leaving many fans wondering what else will happen to our team after the self-imposed postseason ban by the university, mainly asking themselves, will the Orange miss any other tournaments in the future? But now these fans have answers to many of their questions, and many tell me these are answers which hit them and the team very hard. The suspension of Coach Jim Boeheim, the loss of scholarships for the team, and the vacation of wins from past season as a complete shock to many fans. But for others, this was to be expected after a years-long investigation into the team by the NCAA. Now questions are being raised by many fans wondering how this could possibly impact the team's recruiting classes in the future for years to come.
I think a lot of recruits are going to say, well, if we're going to be banned and suspended from stuff, why would I want to go when I'm going to have national attention at SU?
It's already hard enough to get them to come here with all the snow that we get every year, let alone this kind of stuff. And scholarships going away and maybe possible, not being able to play postseason, it's a huge thing. It makes a big difference.
Coming up later tonight, we're going to be dissecting a lot of the angles of this story, including we're going to be talking about the actual suspension, that 9-game ACC suspension this upcoming season against Coach Jim Boeheim. We're going to be talking with fans. Do they think that doesn't go far enough, or does it not even come close? And then we're also going to be talking about, do they think he's going to appeal this? And if so, would he win? For now, we're live inside Tully's. I'm Alex Priscilla. Matt, back to you.
Well, thank you, Alex. Again, the breaking news in this half hour, Coach Boeheim does plan to appeal these sanctions that he now faces. Megan?
All right, the bombshell by noontime today, and we will stay on top of it through the 11 o'clock tonight. Matt, thanks. Syracuse University Chancellor Kent Syverud responded to the NCAA infractions report. He called out the report on the length of their investigation, saying, quote, "We believe the NCAA's investigation of Syracuse University has taken longer than any other investigation in NCAA history. The entire process has taken close to 8 years." Syverud also notes the university did not and does not agree with all the conclusions reached by the NCAA, including some of the findings and the penalties. He says the school may appeal some of the decision. And again, we just learned Coach Boeheim does plan to appeal some of the portions concerning him. Much more on our website, cnycentral.com.